30th session of the Norton Planning Board. Ordinarily, I'd step away from this part of board reorganization, but actually before I do that, I do want to welcome back Kevin O'Neill.
Thank you.
Newly reelected member of the Planning Board. And Scott Dickin.
You got it.
A new member of the Planning Board. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.
See how enjoyable it is for you.
What a ringing start.
Well, hey, we'll see.
Now you tell me.
In any case, the first item on the agenda is board reorganization. I do not wish to continue as chairman, so I would hope that someone either is willing to or absent volunteering, he or she could be drafted by virtue of nomination. So is there, I guess, anyone interested in doing it? And is there a nomination of anyone?
Can I make a nomination
Certainly.
for Tim?
Tim has been nominated to serve as chairman. Is there a second?
I guess what you could do is,
Can we nominate more than one person?
Certainly.
Well, I'd like-
Although, just to clean up
Yeah.
the action, there's been no second, so there wouldn't be another person if there's no second. So, is there, hearing no second,
yeah,
Did
I
I
understand what I'm saying.
not allowed to second myself?
you certainly are.
Whatever.
Or not?
You are.
I guess I will second myself then.
Okay, so there is a nominee. Is there another nomination?
I'd like to nominate Steve.
Okay. Is there a second to that nomination?
I guess I'll second myself too then.
So we have two nominees. Any other nominations?
Specifically for chair, correct?
Yes. We're dealing with chair, and then there are two other positions, vice chair and clerk, that we can fill afterwards. But any other nominations? Hearing none, there are two nominees. Let's see how, I guess we'll just do this individually by each member voting for a particular nominee, in which case I'll start with you, Julie.
I'll vote for Steve.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask, based on the history of the five that were on the board the last year, that you skip over Scott and myself until the rest of the five of you vote?
Again, there's nothing that would prohibit that, but
Give you five a little bit more weight in the decision.
I have another idea. See that? We know that parking lot.
all right then, Steve?
Dumpsters are behind the school.
Steve?
Myself.
I'm just a little confused. What is the reefer truck
All right.
here? Because to me, a reefer truck is a
Tim?
truck that carries refrigerants.
Tim.
Well,
And there's no opening
all
to
right.
sell anything.
why don't we do this? Why don't we, who's calling Fresh Catch, you or Heather?
My car. Well, it's gonna be mine.
All right. Do you
I
have
set
any
you up.
call Fresh Catch?
Yeah, I was trying to anticipate what it was that you were,
But who should have more weight than you, right?
no, I mean, obviously, we're all individual members. I'll vote for Steve.
So why don't you call Fresh Catch and talk to Fresh Catch? I know, I'm both.
Okay, so,
I'll vote for Steve as well.
not looking after.
We'll know, and then we can figure it out then. Because now, right now, all we're doing is kind of
Yeah.
asking.
I too will vote for Steve.
All right then, so Steve has been elected chairman, so with no further ado, I'll swap chairs.
Joe, you can't get out of that seat fast enough,
I
can you?
I should have first brought this up, but as long as, Joe, you're sure you don't want to stay?
Well, I'll stay as a member.
Let's see what's going on.
Come on,
This way.
I cannot go in any further.
I mean, you're heating for two, though.
I know, you got like 2 things going down.
What?
I thought there'd be more like.
Sorry, you're in Southwest Coach.
All right, thank you all. Now, the chair would recognize any nominations for vice chair at this point.
I'd like to nominate Tim for vice chair.
Second.
Any other nominations? I would actually like to nominate Julie for vice chair. Is there a second?
I'll second.
So we'll do similar to the chair. We'll take a vote of the membership. Julie?
I'll vote for myself.
All right. Scott?
Could we potentially
Oh, yeah. Oh, I apologize.
Kevin's recommendation? I agree with his thoughts on it.
Joe?
I'll vote for Tim.
You'll have to keep track of this, Joey.
I started to write, I thought, wait a minute, I don't know.
Force of habit, right?
Okay, Tim?
I'll vote for myself.
You sure?
Yes.
I'll vote for Tim as well.
And I'm going to make it difficult for you all. I'm going to vote for Julie.
I'll vote for Tim.
Scott?
I'll vote for Julie.
All right. So 4-3 for Tim. So Tim, congratulations.
Okay. Thank you.
I think you need to move on over too.
We're gonna do the rearranging there. This one have to move far.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. We also need to vote on a clerk. I was the clerk. It's are there any nominations, or would anyone like to volunteer to be the clerk?
What's the role of the clerk?
Well, the clerk has actually the very important responsibility of once a decision has been rendered by the board, the clerk actually ends up certifying it or signing for it, and then it goes to the town clerk. So we can't take action until planning board clerk signs.
I nominate Julie.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any other nominations?
I'm sorry. who's nominated?
Julie, he nominated
Oh,
Julie.
okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, you nominated?
Julie.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Me.
One benefit, I think, if people are local during the workday, then they can come in and sign things in a timely manner. I don't know what your work schedule is like, Julie. but-
Yeah, I work in Providence,
Okay.
so I'm fairly local, but, I mean, I'll make it a point to be here anytime needed.
Okay.
Yeah, but I held the clerk position, and it worked out because my office is right up the street, so.
Yeah.
And we can travel. I live in Providence, so I know where you work.
Yes.
Still can't find your office somewhere tucked in that building, but.
We could always make it work, though, Paul.
It's only extremely important when the decision's been
Yeah.
completed and it needs to be signed, so
Yep.
we can figure that out. That turnaround is easy.
Right.
I would be happy to fill the role and make it a priority.
And we're trying to verify whether a digital signature is acceptable. The
Oh,
town
versus
clerk
like a
is
hard-
looking at that. She has been requesting hard copies, actual hard copies of the original, but she's looking with the state to see if a digital will work.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second. Are there any other nominations? I think we can do a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, unanimous. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you.
As the clerk.
And we do not have minutes from the last
Okay,
meeting.
we don't have any minutes from the last meeting. We don't have any bills.
No, sir.
Either. Okay.
Nope.
So we can hang on to that item C and get right to the A&R endorsement for 210 Bay Road.
So Steve, just as an abutter to the Fairland Farm location, I'll have to recuse myself, as well as for the second A&R on the agenda for tonight, so I'll recuse and step away for a few moments.
Okay.
Thanks.
Tell Gina, move her stuff.
Good evening, all. My name is Ian Wisery. I'm a professional land surveyor with Beals and Thomas. First item on the our submission tonight is a A&R plan for the Fairland Farm property located Bay Road. The plan itself, what we've done is created some parcelization. I don't know if you have copies in front of you, but this is the overall. We have the land in Norton creating parcel A, lot 1, and then remaining land in Easton. All three, both the parcelizations and the lot are non-buildable. I should say parcel A and lot 1 in Norton are non-buildable by zoning definition. They don't meet the shape factor under the zoning dimensions. So for your endorsement, that's the gist of it.
It's a tongue and groove design, it comes in big pieces, and you just, you know what tongue and groove.
Do we have any questions from the board?
I'm off, Friday off, the 14th.
Just in terms of the plan itself, on the eastern line, I can't tell with this lot, you have a configuration that's spread out. I can't tell where the lot line starts.
They start at the town line, is that the?
You've
The
got
eastern
this-
line, I'm sorry,
You've got this sort of rectangle around the town line, and then parcel B, is that part of parcel B, or is that?
parcel B is part of the overall deed. However, it's land lying in Easton.
Could you just trace it with your finger on the plot, just so we can see? I think Oren's trying to get an idea what the actual dimensions
Okay.
are of it.
So it comes around here.
These are
It's this phantom line type.
Okay,
Is this bigger than that?
so then that rectangular and
Maybe they actually.
triangle piece,
This
that
piece
one
here.
in the, yeah, so
And
what,
this piece
what
here.
happens with those?
I don't believe we have those in ownership. I think the detail sheet.
Oh, those are different owners?
I don't believe those are in Fairland Farms ownership.
Okay.
Which,
No, I'm sorry, those are different assessors parcels. So they're showing the assessors parcelization in Easton. So this is owned by Fairland Farm, this is owned by Fairland Farm, and then this assessors parcel is as well.
so,
So there's three parcels on the eastern line, okay. On the eastern side.
okay. You did a resubmission, you sent in an application and a plan on April 29th. Was that given to the clerk as part of a Form A after the resubmission?
It became, the clerk in reviewing the initial submission, we had requested some assessors, butters information, and the clerk informed us that there was a problem with the GIS in town. So we have an abutting parcel, let's see, sheet 2. This abutting lot down here is also owned by Fairland Farm LLC. We have a different abutters label on it.
No, but you gave them Lot 11 and a Lot 25.
Correct.
As a description of the parcel being affected.
The locust parcel, correct.
Correct, so, and then this other thing was just identifying the current owner.
Correct.
So, with the submission, the submission is supposed to contain sufficient information to describe the land. If it didn't, you should have, I thought, did you notify the clerk of a resubmission?
In working with Paul, we gave him an updated Form A, including Lot 25.
And that was on April 29th?
That was yesterday.
In looking at the rules and regulations governing subdivisions in Newton, in Article 2, Section 2.2, it calls for a couple of things to be included in this plan. One is the assessors map and parcel. You referenced that in your submission, but you didn't add that to the plan itself.
Stage looks like.
You still have parcel 11, you didn't add parcel 25? That anywhere I could find.
I'm not certain that parcel 25 is annotated on the face of the plan.
Is it part of the lot 1 at this point?
Yes, it is, a portion of it.
So it needs to be annotated on the plan?
I'm sorry?
It needs to be annotated on the plan?
Per the zoning regulation, or per the submission regulation?
So the location of the land, yes, per section 2.2 of Article 2 of the Rules and Regulations, assessors map and parcel need to be part of the submission.
It's on the Form A, it's not annotated on the plan.
Okay, but it calls for it to be on the plan. The other thing is it calls for the names of the butters of property. My understanding is the definition under our rules and regulations is that abutters are defined as owners of land separated by a way not over 60 feet in width. So at least as to the entrance that's on Bay Road, would we not need to identify the abutters across the street from that way? I'm assuming it's less than 60 feet wide.
We have not included those abutters on the plan as well.
My understanding is that the property is subject to waterfront area designations. I know that in the Conservation Commission, they've been reviewing those with you. I have a small copy of this. I wasn't able to locate any of those areas designated on this plan. Are they?
The Water Overlay District?
No, it's you referenced that it is in a water resource district. The whole area is water resource.
Yeah.
It's in there. But it also calls for, there's a riverfront area designation. Basically, it's a 200-foot riverfront area that you're talking about with conservation. Is that designated somewhere on the plan?
No, it is not.
Okay. It also asks that you show within the entirety other lots owned by the landlord by either reference to a deed, unless there's a recorded plan. This parcel B, is there any reference to a deed on that for us, or a recorded plan?
Parcel B is included under the overall Fairland Farm deed.
It's not referenced. You also have, there's a couple of different structures on this property. There's a workshop and there's a bunch of pump houses. The requirement calls for locating any existing buildings with dimensions to the side, front, and rear lines. Are those, I'm not sure what the pump houses are. I know that there appears to be a workshop, and it looks like you identified a front yard anyway. But I don't think there's any other identifications.
We treated each of the zoning dimensionals as the structure that would be closest to that setback. So in showing, for instance, a pump house in the rear, it's 35.5 feet from the proposed lot line. We showed the side yards to the shop house. So basically, whichever building was closest to that zoning dimensional would have been the one that was annotated.
Now, the pump house itself, what is that? Is it,
It's literally a pump house to draw water from one of the bogs to a higher elevation or lower elevation.
so what's the size of the pump house?
I think they're about maybe 12 by 10 or so,
And height being,
less, 1 story.
okay.
The article, the rules and regulations under Article 2, Section 2.33 says if the board determines that the plan does not fully satisfy the requirements of 2.1 or 2.2, those are the ones I went through, it shall deem the plan not to have been submitted and shall return the original plan to the applicant. The Planning Board Operational Handbook, page 16, says any plan deficiencies of any of the requirements of the Planning Board for a Form A plan shall be considered not have been submitted. I would suggest and propose that we submit this back to them and ask them to add those changes or the things that are missing from this plan that are required under our handbook.
Respectfully, sir, state law supersedes that provision of the bylaw with regard to whether or not the board has in its power to deny a plan that is inadequate for failing to comply with certain requirements under the Town of Norton bylaw. The only ground for this board to not approve this plan forthwith as not requiring an endorsement under the subdivision control law is if this plan shows a subdivision. It clearly does not. The board has no discretion. And if the board does not approve of this plan forthwith, absent this plan showing a subdivision, which again, it does not, this board would again be in violation of state law.
And state law, you are required to submit this change, the change you made to the clerk. You haven't done that, is that correct?
The change concerns labeling, and as my associate here said, the change has been submitted to the clerk vis-a-vis Director DiGiuseppe. But the change has nothing to do with the boundaries. It has nothing to do with where the internal lot lines are. It has only to do with labeling as shown on the plan.
It has identifying the property itself.
Yes, and under state law, there is no requirement that the plan accurately shows all of the adjacent properties. The only requirement is that the plan does not show a subdivision.
I'd submit these are the rules and regulations that you were aware of. Those are our rules and regulations in clarifying what's supposed to be submitted. And failing that, I would suggest that, I really ask that you revise the plan and submit it back to us. We're not rejecting it. We're just saying, show that information.
And I respectfully would disagree that we should be required to. We have made a good faith effort to comply with the town's rules. We have submitted a subdivision, an A&R plan that complies with what we view as being in good faith, our reading of the Norton bylaws. It complies with state law. And our view is that we have done what we are required to do under the subdivision control law to be entitled to an A&R endorsement by the board.
Could you just show me where the frontage is labeled? I know where the frontage is, but I don't see any dimensional.
There's a dimensional table.
I know it says, but there's no scale. I know it says 176 feet, but there's no. I assume that's at that point that touches Bay Road. But
Correct.
There's no. If I were to look at your scale, that's the only thing I have to go on, correct? There's no, you haven't shown the actual dimension of frontage other than the table, just so
I
I'm
mean,
clear.
the detail sheet 4, has the actual courses along Bay Road.
Okay. Okay, thank you. But it doesn't, again, give a dimension. It does. The 126.75 and the 50,
Is the 176,
Right.
75.
there, looks like a straight
Oh,
line.
it's two, okay.
Why isn't that just 176?
There's 2 courses there. They have leaders. You see the ticked crow's feet. That heavier dark line you see there is the edge of pavement, the detail line.
Okay.
Huh? No, I have a map.
One other comment, it's my understanding in reading some of the case law, it's clear that if there's one buildable lot, you can have other lots that are parcels. In this case, you're presenting basically 3 parcels, none of which are buildable lots. And I would like to defer this to town council to determine, to confirm whether or not that's appropriate for us to act, A, on that basis, and B, relative to the failing to comply with our rules and regulations relative to the subdivision.
And respectfully, sir, the primary lot that is shown on this plan is a buildable lot. So
You haven't designated it as such.
it is a buildable lot.
Well, you haven't designated it as such. You've designated it a non-buildable lot.
We have designated the non-buildable lots as non-buildable. There's no requirement to label every buildable lot with the word buildable.
You only have one lot, you have one lot and 2 parcels. The
Correct.
one lot you have is designated non-buildable.
Yeah.
And under 81L, it has to be a lot, it has to be a buildable lot. You've designated it as non-buildable.
That is correct. We don't meet the zoning definition of lot shape factor on lot one.
So basically, there are three parcels that, none of which are buildable lots. And I don't mind that myself, but in reading through the case law that I've seen, it's clear when there is at least one buildable lot, you can go with an A and R. I don't know that it's clear that without a buildable lot and merely just three parcels, you can create a separate parcel, none of which are buildable under the A and R provisions. And I would defer that to town council, along with the question as to whether we can require you to comply with the rules and regulations governing the subdivision.
And, sir, you referenced 81L. This is a plan under 81P for an A&R endorsement, not 81L.
81L defines what a lot is.
And 81P does not have any requirement as to what is a lot, how many lots, how many are buildable. What 81P provides is that if a plan submitted for an A&R endorsement does not show a subdivision, this board shall forthwith endorse it as such. If the board believes that is not its obligation, I honestly can't say it any more plainer than the statute is worded. The statute does not give the board discretion.
Rather than continue the back and forth here, are there any other questions on the A&R for the applicant? Okay.
I have none.
Paul, did you want to add something?
Understanding that with the new lot created, Lot 1, you have clear access, frontage to Bay Road. Can you explain the frontage aspect of Parcel A, which is remaining? Because as I look at it, I don't see it having frontage from what I'm looking at, so I was hoping you all could describe that.
So the parcelization, the proposed lot line that creates that Parcel A and divides it from Lot 1, is still retained in ownership. Any access egress is going to go over and across Lot 1 until some sort of easement, or if it was conveyed out, they would have to afford for access to it somehow.
Is there, it sounds like there isn't current access?
By virtue of it being in common ownership, there is.
Right, no, I understand. I mean, just physically, there's currently.
It does not
Okay.
have frontage, correct.
But it's in the same ownership, so.
You've designated for the other parcel that you're splitting that up in order to add it, to convey it to this parcel. Do you have a purpose for creating this Lot A? This Parcel A, I'm sorry?
Parcel A, no, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Are there any further questions from the board? From Paul?
I have one, Steve.
Sure.
Should we be concerned about the abutter notification and potentially the lack thereof to Oren's point?
Correct me if I'm wrong on this. Joe, I apologize for dragging you back in, but I believe with an A&R that's not required.
Well, I mean, that's the question. I'm sitting here, as I understand an A&R, as long as it has frontage, it meets the requirements. Notwithstanding what's going on in the back, notwithstanding whether it's buildable or not. However, the question of whether our rules and regulations need to be complied with in order to allow us to go ahead and act on it, I don't know. I will say that in times past, particularly in terms of a butter notification, they may have been done, but we have never been presented with evidence of a butter notification for an A&R. Now, whether it was done behind the scenes and just not mentioned, I tend to doubt, but now that the issue is raised, I don't see the harm in asking or deferring action on this. I forget what the timeline is, but until such time as town council can weigh in on the applicability of our rules and regulations. But in terms of if the rules and regulations are in fact superseded and made moot by state law, then I think this meets the requirements of an A&R. But I can't speak to the the efficacy of our rules and regs.
I personally do not see the need to kick the can down the road on this one. It's dividing into two non-buildable lots. But I will entertain a motion either way from the board, from anyone.
I would make a motion to suggest to the applicant that they return the plan to them and ask them that they comply with the requirements of our rules and regulations, and at the same time refer that question relative to its compliance to our council. I don't know the harm that if in fact they're right, then it stays in place. If in fact they're wrong, we're entitled to get that information.
So it's been a motion.
How much time do we have to act on A&R requests? Paul, do you know what the timeline is?
I think it's 21 days.
21 days, 14? No, it's 21.
It's a fairly short,
I can answer that question if I may. The statute does provide a 21-day limitation, that if there is no action within 21 days, the plan is deemed to be granted and the board is required to provide an endorsement. As to what the meaning of the word forthwith is, Massachusetts courts have time and again stated that forthwith means immediately, means quickly, means promptly. It is pretty unambiguous in what the courts have said, that forthwith is not a broad directive. It means what it says.
Would our timeline for approval be based on, would it be based on the 29th or the 16th?
I believe the 16th.
Well, I think that's a question that we can also refer back to council.
But by doing that, because we're already at 14 days, so,
Yeah, and our next meeting is until the 14th, so would be beyond that.
yeah.
that's not a public hearing.
So there's been somewhat of a motion. I'd like that to be a little more concise as to what you're requesting, Orin.
I'm requesting that, that the board, the board having determined that they have not fully satisfied the requirements of 2.2, which is our rules and regulations, it shall be deemed, the plan deemed not have been submitted, and return the original plan to the applicant.
So let's be more specific on what your
Okay.
intention is, so we can,
Why it's not compliant?
yeah, because I know a lot of changes were already delivered today, so.
Only two. Well, for the first part is the plans, although the letter submitted identified the parcels as being, changed it from lot 11.0 to 11 and 25. The plan itself does not contain that.
The updated plans do.
The updated plan,
Yeah.
no, they don't.
Yeah, these are corrected, right?
No, they don't.
Well, the updated plan, this includes the corrected parcel information.
No, it contains the parcel that's abutting it. Change the name of the parcel that's abutting it, but it still doesn't have the parcel identification under the record owner. It still shows as parcel 11. It doesn't say parcel 25 and parcel 11. It's in the submission document identified, changed that, but it didn't change the plan.
The second box from the top on the right side of the page is what Owen's referring to.
Yeah.
The names of the abutting owners, need to include the people that are across, I think, probably from the frontage road, the 150 frontage road, at least those people. I don't know if all the other abutters have been listed myself, but clearly, they haven't listed the ones that are across the street from the frontage line, which would be this two houses on Bay Road, which would be within, I'm assuming that Bay Road is less than 60 feet wide. There also is no designation for the riverfront area, which is basically under the Wetlands Protection Area District, and it's something that the applicant is aware of, having worked with the Conservation Commission on identifying those. I don't see that identified on this plan. And it's location of all wetlands and permanent water bodies. It's not designated on the plan. And there is existing buildings, no side, front, and rear lines. I don't know that that's an issue. Certainly, at least with respect to the workshop, it's clear that it's not, but it's not designated on there, although it's required under the rules and regulations.
Okay, there's been a motion, so moved. I'm not going to repeat all of that. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Discussion?
From a procedural standpoint, I guess, would you, it'd be fair to call those just kind of clerical updates? To a degree, in terms of.
To the extent, I mean.
In terms of labeling the parcel and.
Labeling the abutters.
Yes.
Abutters identification and the reference to the riverfront areas, I think, are something that's critical to understanding it. And also, I think, putting in on the plan, the other lot is critical to identifying the property.
Right. But by and large, these are clerical updates to the plans. I would say, keeping in mind that we want this to move as quickly as possible, what would you say would be an appropriate, what would changes like that take in terms of time to update on the plans?
We could make those changes in very short order.
Very short order, meeting?
Tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, my concern is that when this comes back to us, it'll be past the 21 days, and I'm not so sure we want to get into that.
Especially once it starts filling up.
That's my concern on that motion in particular. I am okay with requesting changes, as Orin asked.
Mr. Chairman, Paul, can I ask, you sent an email yesterday to the board mentioning that the applicant had provided a revised application and map showing the current owner and parcel ID. Does the
Right.
21 days get reset based on that update yesterday to the application?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I would have to defer that to council. This is the updates were, partly driven by errors we had on the assessor's map that the assessor herself verified, which they've corrected. So, I wouldn't say that these are substantive changes to the proposal itself. It was essentially a labeling error.
If I could, to speak to the motion. As I said, I don't recall, it's not to say it didn't happen, I highly doubt that it did. Past A&Rs notified abutters and followed our rules and regulations. And that causes me concern because, and I'm not the brightest legal mind here, I'll defer to you, but you've got a special permit, a site plan that was denied. I won't get into the arguments for and against that, but my sense is, by the virtue of the fact you're still here, you're not going away. And my concern would be that taking an action that could very easily be viewed as arbitrary and capricious. We have not held others on an A&R to the same standard. Is only going to be used as fodder in their argument for bias or other ill action in their appeal to the courts. Based on what I see here, it's no better, no worse than what we've seen in the past. And on that basis, although I understand Orin's argument, and that's an argument that we probably ought to get clarified, that is to say, how do our rules and regulations dovetail into state law? I don't want to bring it up now because I think it's only going to be thrown in our face later. So I, for one, can't support the motion.
May I suggest, perhaps, they've indicated they could do this in a matter of days. Why don't we I would suggest basically approving the plan with those changes, but they have to resubmit those changes and copy to the clerk's office with those changes made as a resubmittal. And we can basically let them know that with those changes, complying with our rules and regulations, we're fine with it. But I think it's incumbent on them, in keeping with our town regulations, and that does not put an undue burden on them, and it does not being arbitrary and capricious. It's basically saying, these are our rules, you know our rules, you come in with a plan that doesn't comply with them, you can easily comply with them, we're just asking you to comply, resubmit, and we've agreed that with that resubmittal, we were prepared to sign that, the A&R.
So the revised motion would be to approve with the stipulation that these items be corrected
Yes.
and submitted. I tend to fully agree with Joe on this. I think the amount of scrutiny on this is not similar to any other A&R we've received, at least in the past 2 years that I've been on the board. So I'd be very careful with that. So with the revised motion, do we also, Kevin, did you second?
I did.
Oh, I'm sorry, Julie.
That's fine, yep. I stand by that.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No.
Opposed?
I apologize, opposed? Two? Okay,
Aye.
Roll call.
do a roll call. Julie?
I am for them resubmitting the plan with the designated changes that Orin made. Just to make sure we're all voting on the same thing.
Joe?
No.
The Halloween parade, they
Kevin?
the ice cream truck with
Orin?
Yes.
on the fridge, but
Tim?
No.
they put ice cream
And I will vote yes.
and
Is that?
You're in favor of the motion?
they provide
Yes.
all the ice cream for that. So we kind of like don't hit them up.
So we are dead
We're
loss.
split.
3-3.
Yeah, we don't want to hit them up too much too
So
often.
the motion fails. I'll make a motion that we approve the A&R with, because we don't have it here, but we do have the corrected assessors parcels
Yes.
on the Mylar.
Yes.
I'll make,
Well, that one correction, I guess your issue was it didn't get reflected.
It's not on the Mylar.
I'm sorry,
It's not on the Mylar.
what you were recommending, right, what we had asked, we had talked about before regarding who owned that,
That's a different parcel.
right,
That's something else. That's a
Right.
different issue than identifying the parcel for
Right.
identification purposes.
You know, it's new, but it crapped the bed right before the Halloween parade. I don't believe
problems.
This isn't a public hearing.
All right, we can't get it corrected. What has been corrected on the Mylar? You talked to the Registry of Deeds, they will accept handwritten corrections.
Yes.
Is the Mylar handwritten, is the Mylar correct, be it handwritten or originally?
Not to all of the.
not to all of the points that were brought up earlier.
Well, I'm talking about assessor, the
Right.
plot, the lots and owners. It's not?
The lots and owners, yes. The box on the right-hand side
Record
also-
owner.
should also list 25, is Aaron's point.
So you could have the option of writing in right now. I mean, the Registry of Deeds said you can handwrite corrections as long as it's done before you sign it.
Are you,
That gives you some flexibility.
are you prepared to make that correction now?
With the assessor's lotting, certainly.
Yep.
And it's our understanding,
In our handbook, it says if the Form A is fundamentally correct but needs some minor adjustments, the linen can be sent back with 3 signatures until the corrections are made.
Well, 3 signatures doesn't constitute a quorum, that's the problem, and we've got 21 days from the 16th to approve this, or it's, and again,
No,
if this is going to be approved ultimately, I just as soon do it now so that, minutes of this meeting aren't entered into their exhibits on appeal for something else. Again, I don't want to treat them any better or worse than we've treated others. If there are what I call clerical errors, i.e. particularly as it relates to the assessors maps, and that can be handled now, then I just soon see them corrected and act on this. So, to that end, I move that pending the applicant's correction on the plan tonight, we approve the A&R as presented and corrected.
There's a motion to approve the A&R with the applicant's corrections written in tonight. Is there a second?
I will second that.
All in favor?
Just quick discussion.
Oh, sorry, I apologize.
What is this lot zoned currently?
R80.
R80?
Residential 80.
Okay, thank you. Well said.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Roll call, Julie?
Aye.
Joe?
Yes.
Yes. Kevin? Yes. Orin?
no.
Tim?
Yes.
And I will also vote yes. Motion passes.
Okay, so before we sign that, would you make those corrections?
The Mylars?
I have them. I would, well, they sign, again, 3 copies, so I would,
Yeah.
I would do both the Mylar and 2 copies of it.
If you do the corrections, we'll circle back to it.
We can just get one more, that way they can
One
sign
more
the 3
copy.
copies.
These aren't all the same though. Oh wait, they're handwritten on this.
They're gonna handwrite on these, and that one. You have, okay,
Anybody have a fellow pen?
oh,
Or fine point Sharpie?
Want me to run upstairs?
We got it right here. Regular pen?
No.
Sharpie.
yeah, can we get it?
You know I have my nice pen.
Yeah,
I have a jump pen.
and that was for 210 Bay, we still have 0.
Next on the agenda is the A&R for Zero Bay Road.
So the second of our submissions tonight, this is the Perilio sand and gravel lot fronting along Bay Road. Basically, we're creating a parcelization here, a parcel A, and then a lot B1. Lot B1 will remain a buildable lot, passes all the zoning dimensionals, and parcel A to be deeded over to Fairland Farm.
Thank you.
Do you have a note on these plans indicating that approval is not a determination? I think it is there, not a determination of zoning.
Under the signing block.
Okay. I just note the same issue with respect to butters. They're not listed on here as well. Butters are being on Bay Road, which is within 60 feet of a way of less than 60 feet abutting the property. And they're not posted as required under our rules and regulations governing subdivisions in Norton, under Article 2, Section 2.2.
Do you have any other questions from the board?
That'll work great.
Is the plan to combine parcel A with 6-11?
Correct.
I've got a question. You reference this property as being 210 Bay Road, which is the same designation as you gave in the prior plan?
This is Zero Bay Road.
0.
One was
We're
0.
on the next A&R.
I'm on this A&R. If
Yes.
the A&R is listed, the one we have, this is
No.
210.
Oh. Right here.
Yeah.
That is correct. Or I'm in agreement.
Any further questions?
Are they going to be modifying plan to reflect what the right address is?
Yes, they said they.
You're in agreement that that needs to be modified as well?
So just for clarification, the Bay Road Lot B1 should be 210 Bay Road?
No, it says 210, it should be,
It should be 0?
the plans themselves say 210.
Right.
It doesn't match the application.
Actually, it does match the
Does it?
application.
Oh,
Both say 210,
Oh,
both
both
should be
say-
0.
oh.
Right. Just wanted to make sure which one.
thinking I'm looking at the wrong one.
The application says 210 as well?
Yes.
Oh, no, see, this is.
No, the
location
application
of
says
Bay
0.
Road.
Maybe the other one, Joe.
Yeah, Form A says 0.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
I was looking at, all right.
That's what this-
So other than that change, are there any other questions or changes?
We're just noting the absence of abutters, but
Oh, not hearing any, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Do what? I just said motion.
Oh, yeah, I thought you were entertaining. Go ahead.
I would assume the motion would be to approve with the change, to correct the address on the plans from 210 to 0 Bay Road.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We'll have to go down the line. Julie?
Aye.
Joe?
Yes.
Kevin?
Aye.
Orin?
no.
Tim?
Aye.
And I will vote yes. So, motion passes. And similar to the other A&R, we'll just have you make the changes and then we'll do the signature.
These are there.
Skip 3.
Two of them. Whatever you have there. I'll keep you in line here on the back end of the table.
I'm asleep back here now.
Okay, moving on to special permit 485. We have a public hearing for 11 Seminary Way.
You're good. Yeah.
Is the podium okay for now? Just move there.
Absolutely.
I can't get that to work, so I don't have pictures. Sorry.
That's all right, we could send them around if we need to.
They had them digitally, but
Oh, good. What did he say?
this is your.
Make notes on these two.
Okay, wait, I was waiting for it to quiet down a little bit. Whenever you're ready, you can.
All right. My name is Kathleen LeBlanc, and this is Exhibit A, one of my sons, Josh. We're looking to be in-residence hosts, and under the Norton wording, it says, what does it say? Tourist or rooming house. That's under the Norton guideline. I have met or spoken with in person or on the phone with Paul, with the building inspector Chris Carmichael, with Fire Department Captain Fuller, and Fire Department Deputy Simmons. I am seeking the approval of the board to act as an in-residence host of a safe and pleasant place to stay in Norton. I am pursuing the legal and thorough process in a somewhat new frontier of in-home rentals under the short-term terminology. I've communicated with the members from all 7 homes on Seminary Way. I have received positive feedback, 100%, from all 18 current residents who live on Seminary Way. I have paid close attention to detail. I've had a friend who is an interior designer decorate the room. I have done extensive upgrades, new roof, replaced leaking skylights. I regrouted the floors and the walls. Light switches and wobbly outlets were changed out. 5 new smoke CO2 combination voice command detectors were installed. And if you have any questions, Exhibit A, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm here to say that my mother, she is my mom, and my client, I guess. Raised 6 boys, homeschooled us all, valedictorian of my class, most likely to succeed and fail, but she did a great job, I think, and having the backing of our neighborhood, and other than that, I think she's got it. Thank you, Mom.
Does Exhibit A get ousted at the Is that how this
No,
works?
Exhibit A will also be an in-residence host. He'll be the groundskeeper, snow removal.
Security.
Yeah, security.
Okay, are there any questions, comments from the board?
Is short-term rental adequate for what you're trying to accomplish?
I think so.
Okay.
I think 31 consecutive days is plenty. And I've noticed online there are many in-home rentals in Norton, but I want to pursue the legal, safe pathway.
You've indicated you may have more than one room that you're going to be there?
No, currently just 1 bedroom and 1 bathroom. And they have their own private entrance. A door was installed that was building inspected by Chris Carmichael, but currently just 1, because it is a 3-bedroom house. So I have 1 bedroom, the boys have 1 bedroom, I have 2 sons that still live at home, and then the guest.
There's no cooking in the room itself, or no cooking?
I leave snacks, but I will not be providing a breakfast. There's a mini refrigerator. There is a mini microwave and a teeny tiny coffee pot, a Keurig, but it's a miniature one.
And parking, where are they going to be parking?
One driveway could accommodate approximately 5 cars, and the other driveway approximately 2. They will not be parking on the street, and I have, like I said, had the approval of all residents on the street. They know us. We've lived there for over 15 years, and no, we do not want parking on the street. We will also have house rules as far as no guests other than those who have paid. It is a queen-size bed in the room. I don't know if you saw the picture going around. I thought it was a very pleasant place to stay, and if y'all have any relatives or friends that you would like to stay and they're coming to visit, you could send them our way.
The reason why I asked is, if you want to continue to do it month after month, does it make it complicated for them? Do they have to refile for every 31 days? How does it work if they want to go beyond a short-term?
At that point, it'd be a rental basis, so it's,
Then they don't need any approval.
right, they wouldn't need a special permit for that.
Right.
But in talking with her, it looks like it's short-term duration,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, and if they added another room, which hopefully in the future you said,
Yes, but not in the near future. We're taking up the space. It is 1,600 square feet.
this permit's for 1 room.
And we
It's listed on
we
there.
can condition the special permit for 1 room if that's what you choose to do.
I don't have the thing on the reverse side.
The
but-
proposed use does list possibly 2 more in the distant future.
That's because of the permit process. Permits 1 to 3 bedrooms in Norton. And I thought instead of coming before the board each time, but like I said, currently 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, separate from the rest of the house.
We also, staff met last week, town manager, building commissioner, board of health, and the assessor, and we had come up with a recommended conditions. In fact, Ms. LeBlanc and I spoke about it today, and she seemed agreeable to it. But some of them are based on state law that short-term rentals must register with the State Department of Revenue. We would recommend that be put in there. We would also recommend that the duration of stay couldn't be more than 31 consecutive days. That's consistent with the state's definition. We would also ask that she apply for the town's business certificate application, although you said you have a business. So my suggestion was if we at least put that in there, you could work with the town to see if your current application would be applicable here.
Okay.
We were also, the building commissioner asked that we have a condition that allows for a pre-occupancy inspection. And then finally, to get to the issue of parking, that we would just require in the special permit that guests park in the driveway.
Are you okay with all those conditions?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve the application for special permit for tourist rooming house as presented and with conditions as noted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yes. Is that, first time for this, in my experience on the board, but you mentioned our regulations allow for 3. I'm reading tourist home, a single-family dwelling adapted to provide room and board or rooms alone for up to 10 transients at any one time. And I'm not suggesting that,
10 transients, you said?
right,
That'd be people, yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
right. So there's, approving this with no conditions would allow for up to 10, as I'm reading the definition of tourist home. And where you're looking for only 1, I would either ask the motioner to include the condition that it be for 1 only.
You're saying one
The
room.
possibility of two additional in the future, so would that be?
But with a modification to the special permit. Because again, this is first time for us, and I don't know what, if any, issues there may be, but I think since you're asking for 1, and I don't view it as a huge modification later, if in fact you wanted to go to 2 or 3, then we'd modify the special permit. But for the moment, I'd either ask the original motioner to make it a condition, or I can move to-
One person?
Right, well, 1 room, I'm
One
sorry.
room.
One room and bath?
Right.
Is the bath separate?
It's,
Is it-
it's adjoining.
So in your thoughts, if you're going to do down the line additional rooms, are you thinking of additional bathrooms as well, or to have it shared?
No, that would be a whole
Yeah.
another ballgame.
Is there a requirement to break what they consider consistency? Can someone rent out one room for 30 days and then move to another room? How does that work? Is there
I
a
didn't have
requirement for
I didn't have
vacancy to
plans for
break
that.
the consecutive term?
Well, the rule is just strictly 31 consecutive days. It doesn't, when I saw it,
So it's
didn't go
contractual?
into saying if you bounced around. I would assume that the rule, I'm not an attorney, but I would assume from a layman's perspective, it just meant you're staying in that room. Or, I mean, it could be if you were at a, say, a bed and breakfast and you went from one to another. I think they would say if you were in any way showing that you were more than just a visitor, then that would move, you would not be a short-term rental at that point.
Understood.
One thing to keep in mind too, fire code states that if you start getting into the realm of 6 unrelated people or people unrelated beyond second kinship, then sprinkler systems would have to be installed. I mean, she's nowhere near there
No.
at that point, but potentially if you get into 3 rooms, there would be that. So I would suggest if you wanted to have flexibility, maybe up to 2 rooms. A third, I would suggest, would require coming back for a special permit, because then the fire department would certainly be looking more closely at that.
I'd like to amend my motion to add a condition up to 2 rooms.
Second remains.
Further
Second
discussion?
one?
I
Okay.
continue to second the motion
So
that Kevin
that's-
made.
I did pay the extra to do the 1 to 3 rooms because it is a residential area. So I paid $300 for the permit, so I could do 1 to 3 with the condition I'm only doing 1 right now because we take up the other 2 bedrooms. And because the Norton bylaws do say 1 to 3 bedrooms.
Just for my edification, where are you saying 1 to 3? And you said you paid extra.
The application, it's a permit, it's the fee notice on special permits. It's something we need to look at later on more closely because it's, but it does say that if you're adding additional units and you're, for a special permit, it's about $100 per unit.
Paul, was there certain inspections that were needed relative to this unit that we would need again for an additional unit?
Well, right, and that's why we would have a condition in there for pre-inspection. But, right, if there's an additional, so if there's another change in use, even if it's up to 2, they would still have to come back and get their building permits for that second room.
I'm sorry, your application, I didn't flip it over to see and possibly 2 more bedrooms in the distant future. I didn't pick up on that. I apologize for that. So, Mr. Chairman, if I could amend my amendment to note up to 3 bedrooms as a condition.
Okay. Julie?
Second.
Could I?
Discussion? You said there's only 3 bedrooms in the house?
Yes, but my sons, if they do choose to move out.
No, but I believe this tourist, whatever it is, requires you to be living in there as well, so you could only really do up to 2?
We have a 4-bedroom septic, we have 3 bedrooms, but 1 room could be made into a bedroom down the road that I would seek building code approval for and building inspection.
Yeah, building inspection and permits.
Right.
Right,
Again, if you
right,
get
and
into
I don't have
3
plans for that.
Right, and if you get into 3 units, it's possible fire could, or building commissioner could come back and say.
Right, and the only reason why I put 1 to 3 is because I did pay the $300 fee for 1 to 3 bedroom per Norton guidelines. So it would, I thought it would save time instead of coming back.
Concerns with?
Could I add a minor comment to your conditions, Paul?
Sure.
For number 4, the applicant must complete a pre-inspection by the building commissioner prior to occupancy of any unit. So that way, anytime a new unit comes on the market, so to speak, that the building commissioner comes out and says everything looks good. And if it's getting to the point where it is getting into sprinklers or fire, or they can talk about that at that point, and that way it's, we're not making you kind of, okay, we're going from 1 to 2, okay, we're going from 2 to 3. It's kind of, I think that.
I think that would work fine.
That's good.
Okay, do we have another amendment?
As Tim added, an additional condition. That makes sense.
Second. I'm not abandoning Kevin now.
So are we
We're
up to
too far
3?
in.
What is it, 3? It's up to 3 now?
The motion was,
Yeah, up to 3 with
Yeah.
the change, the applicant must complete a pre-inspection by the building commissioner prior to each room becoming available to the public. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, I apologize. We actually have to close the public hearing on that before we vote.
All right.
Anybody in the audience?
Nice job, Chair.
I know, I'm already. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to make any comments on this? Okay, hearing none. The chair would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now, we're going to vote on that one more time on Kevin's motion. To approve with the conditions, to approve up to 3 rooms with the condition, the applicant must complete a pre-inspection by the building inspector prior to each room becoming available to the public. It's been motioned and seconded. All in favor?
And the conditions laid out by Paul.
And the conditions, yes. But the change to the condition that Tim included. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go Celtics.
Good luck, thank you.
I'll get the hang of it.
The letter she got from her neighbor was great.
Yeah, right?
It's like all my friends can stay there.
Okay, so we have, are you gentlemen all set? Yep. Okay, so we can go through and sign those, but we have one item on the beginning here, planning board business and
Paul, do you wanna take
policies.
this?
Thanks. Were we going to, someone refresh my memory, we were gonna discuss this at the next meeting? Is that what we were talking about?
What's that?
We were gonna go through the handbook, but that's not gonna be good.
Didn't even see that.
We were going through the handbook?
Oh, we had talked about it.
Ah.
We were gonna do a special meeting for that.
Ah.
Okay.
I don't recall that. Maybe I wasn't here when you talked about that.
Can we get some guidance? I mean, this is the second or third time we've run across a conflict with what we've got in our handbook. And I understand the concern that we haven't done it before, but it's in our handbook, and I have a real problem just ignoring it. We've got to either get council to confirm whether or not we can stay with what's there, or take a real good look at it and make sure what's there is something we're going to use.
Yeah.
But I'm real uncomfortable having it there and not applying it, or applying it in one case and not another case. I think it's only going to lead us into difficulties.
Yeah, I believe, that's what I was getting at. I believe we talked about this a few times to go through the handbook, and there was a few things that were very much outdated, so that absolutely needs to be.
I believe a while back take the scanned PDF, paper, whatever it was, copy, and turned it into a Word document. I can find that and send that out to the board.
I remember you doing that.
Yeah, as a new member, I mean, I've spent a lot of extensive time in it already, so it'd be good to know what in there I need to erase now, you know?
We didn't erase anything. We just,
No, but if it's no longer applicable,
we didn't adjust anything, I think, other than maybe the wording around the vice chair or the clerk or one of those.
Yeah, it was something with the clerk and the vice chair running the meeting after.
But all the other
Yeah,
stuff
Kevin,
that
you were on the
references
board.
bylaws from the 70s is still there.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah,
why don't we do this, Tim, if you can send it out to everyone.
yes.
I don't know how busy our next meeting is, but I think on a lighter meeting in the future, we should go through this and update it.
Yeah.
are amendments to the handbook something that have to be voted on, or is that?
It's the
Is it
We would
board's
have to.
handbook, so yeah, we can make amendments to that.
Okay.
Does that have to be published? I mean, does that have to be public hearing on some of the, this is the subdivision handbook. I think there might be
think-
some limitations on.
We may be talking about two different documents.
Okay.
Yeah, I
What is
think
the
Yeah,
handbook?
that's,
Okay.
because that's a regulation, what you were referring to earlier. What I recall, so were your comments about the planning board handbook?
No, this
Yeah,
is.
that's what I thought.
Well,
No.
yours were earlier-
Those were from the
Right.
Referring to
subdivision
the
handbook.
rules and regs for
Yeah.
Some
subdivision.
regs of subdivision.
And here again, I think town council ought to advise us as to the applicability of these. I'm more concerned, I don't really care if they apply or they don't apply, but they have to be consistently consistently applied or not applied. You can't apply them in certain cases and not apply them in others. That's where we get into trouble. So, if I have to make it as a motion, I will. I move that we seek guidance from town council as to whether our rules and regulations of the Norton Planning Board governing the administration, that's the scenic road piece. Rules and regulations governing subdivision of land is applicable and supersedes state law, which I know it doesn't.
My
but-
question would be if they have to be followed strictly, or if the board has leeway to make decisions as it sees fit. I would like town council to let us know that, too.
Okay.
If you'll amend your motion to add that.
Yeah, that's been, I guess we're pretty loose with our amendments, so that's
Okay.
fine with me.
I have that.
Another discussion also should be the planning board handbook in comparison to the bylaws. 'Cause I think I heard town council a couple meetings ago there was a conflict, and she mentioned the town bylaws take precedent because the handbook's just a handbook.
Yeah, and
Right.
that's originally what I brought up, and let's go with Joe's motion first. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
We all second. Aye.
So I'll send council an email tomorrow asking her to weigh in on the subdivision regulations.
Okay. And Kevin, to your point, that's what I was getting at. I think that it needs to be revised to at least be current with what the current laws are.
No conflicts. The handbook should be a supplement to the bylaws, not in conflict with any of the bylaws, so.
Yeah, and to your point, that would be something that the board would, that doesn't have to be noticed. I mean, that's something we internally would do, so.
Right.
And that's why I wanted to leave that for a lighter day. Not that there may be many of those in the future, but just.
And to also
wishful
ask
thinking.
council if there is a mandatory review cycle. I mean, do we just wait till the next time we think about it, or is there like a 4-year period that council has to provide their feedback to re-adopt it, perhaps?
For what?
Anything. I mean, just as time goes by, we can't continuously rely on our historical way of doing things, especially as new members come on board. So we
Yeah,
should
that-
consider, does council want to agree to review it every 5 years?
It's
As
not
far as our
council
internal-
reviewing it, it's
as far
just
as
us.
Our internal handbook, I mean, the planning board handbook would be up to us, whatever the board is at that time.
Yeah.
I think
All of it should be
periodically
reassessed and reviewed in some kind of a cycle, so it stays current with laws,
I mean,
regulations, and
Maybe
connections
that's
with
something we
that.
put in the handbook is that it's reviewed yearly or every 3 years,
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
So do we have anything else?
On the 14th, the other item is that the language is going to go to the town meeting the next night.
Oh, yeah. Paul,
And
so
that
give
was
us a little
supposed to be-
background on that.
It was supposed to be tonight, but the Sun Chronicle, the ad slipped through the cracks with them, so we couldn't have the hearing because it was never published. So thank you all for agreeing to meet in 2 weeks. But that is your only agenda item that, for now. So if you wanted to take the handbook,
Do we want to schedule any other meetings as well?
that would be helpful. That'll be very helpful, especially since we will have, we do have a project that we expect a site plan and special permit coming this week. So they're expecting to hopefully go to your late May meeting.
So
Well, they can't if we don't schedule them.
Yeah, we have
It's
the
one way of
They can't have it?
dealing with it. Can we sign these folks? Only because they probably don't like us already. There's no point making them even madder at us. So can we just sign those things? And my fear is that we're going to adjourn,
Yeah.
and there may be something that is still problematic. So.
Appreciate it.
Did you
See you
want to
guys
put some
go over
dates
there.
in?
We're going to sign those first,
Yeah.
and then we'll do that. We'll schedule, look up whatever conflicts I have going on.
How you gonna do it, Joe? Have them pass it around and walk up?
You're what?
Yeah, usually it passes it down.
Let's,
I'll start with Julie.
The 2 paper sets and the Mylar something.
Three total, Paul? Or was it
Three each.
2 paper, 1 Mylar?
2 paper and 1 Mylar,
Okay,
yes.
just making sure we have.
Of
the
both.
For 210,
Of both decisions.
there were 3 sets of each. Because I'm probably not in the week of it's the 24th. I'm hoping to take some time off. Oh, actually, the last week. Yeah, it'd be the last week. Okay.
I'm eyeballing it. I just got this yesterday. It's my new one. Can you tell me that's my phone?
What's it?
If we signed it in pink, we might.
Really? We should have one right in a different one.
would they scan it in as black and white or color?
I know, is it color scanned in?
Registry won't take color.
Yeah.
Bug of what happened.
They'd be like, go back. All right, here, Joe, I'm gonna give you the Mylar, since there's 4 each on this one, just to keep things moving here.
Oh, so all 4 pages have to be.
We already have scheduled May 14th. Looks like the normal week we do after that would be the 28th, but I think Paul may not be available, and I might have something on that week as well, so. How do we feel about the June 4th and 18th for the June meeting?
I have no conflicts.
Just one signature page on?
At least as far as I'm aware.
Set?
On the 4-sheet set, there's a signature on each sheet.
On each sheet? Okay, why can't I find it?
Yeah, they're a
see it.
little,
All right,
they're
thank
a
you.
little all over the place now.
Yep.
Taking these straight home.
Either day is good
Look
for
for
me.
mine. The only one that would be legible. Ladies first.
What date for those?
I'm seeing June 1st
First and
and
third.
June 18th.
First and third Tuesday of June.
That's fine with me, Steve.
And I'm looking at July, if we want to go that far, July 9th and 23rd look okay for me.
I need to check that, because I will be,
Yeah, I go away too, so
The 9th and 23rd.
23rd.
Oh,
Okay, sorry, say those days again.
the 23rd, that does actually work, because I'm going away immediately following that.
And then
So,
So we're all agreed for June 4th and 18th.
Paper, the paper, you have the.
How about the July 9th and 23rd?
not the 9th.
Scott, did you say okay for the June meetings?
Yes, they're both
Okay.
All right, so in June, it's the 4th and the 18th, right?
July, well,
Maybe I have to go back to back, or I have to miss one.
we can either go back to back, or we can do the 16th and the 23rd, or we can do the 16th and the 30th.
I can't do this. That'll be, I don't think I'll be back from Florida then. Anything about the 16th and 23rd? Is there, just doing it 2 consecutive weeks?
Fine with
Opposed to
me,
that?
16th and 23rd.
July?
Of July. yeah.
Correct.
Yep, that's good. July 16th and 23rd, a week apart, huh?
So we've,
Yeah,
there's
everybody's,
problems on the 9th and the 30th, so.
and the week before, we could, I'm away too, so.
Well, the 23rd might be, if we have a very light agenda, might be a good day to talk more about, you know, the,
Yeah.
Let's see what happens. And it's also 3 months away, so we also have the right to change our minds if we
Yeah,
want to.
we can always change it if we need to.
Well, I mean, I think if we can get a work, not do it in one setting, maybe have a document that we can take a look at and.
You do not want to do it in one sitting, trust me,
Yeah, so I mean.
because
if
I
we- if we-
half transcribed it.
You know, when we get it, we can start looking at, so it's just 16th.
At this point, yes.
We never voted on
Yeah. But yeah. Yeah. Kevin, I actually used OneNote for the planning board handbook.
oh, you did?
To kind of try to recognize the words and scan them.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Gave me about 60% of what was needed.
Maybe an hour before your
luck.
regularly scheduled meeting in June, possibly.
There's gotta be a better way of doing this. Like,
Okay.
Give me a signature table. We go there instead of the.
That does seem like a better idea.
Yeah.
Start,
normally
now that they're
one
here,
sheet.
to get Andy here to
What
do
is
it.
cumbersome is
It's
this?
usually not on
You all done?
processes.
Yeah.
Open meetings back.
Does it have to be a public meeting?
I have to ask her if it is. I don't mind.
No, I think we had a private meeting when I first came in. I'm just going through the handbook. Usually it happens.
Sorry, Lauren, get 'em all?
Yeah.
So there's been discussion about a joint meeting with the planning board and the ZBA to go over open meeting rules. I think the town council would like to discuss it with us all, and I'm sure everybody would be up for learning a little bit more. Do we have to vote on that? Because I think we would have to vote on that, because I think we would have to have it prior to one of our next meetings. Possibly a meeting in June.
I can coordinate with Amy and see when, on the 4th or the 18th, what works, and I'll have to work with the ZBA as well to see.
So we don't have to take any action right now, I just wanted to let everybody know that we're gonna try to do that.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah. Also, when I first came on, we had a meeting that went through the handbook and all of, pretty much all of everything. I don't think we did it with Julie and Orin, so I'm thinking it doesn't have to be an open meeting either. Kevin, you were there.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. Was that something that everybody,
missed
the
it.
folks would be? Oh, that's right, you weren't there.
No,
And
I
the
forget
workshop.
why.
Interesting.
The
Yeah, it was
workshop
kind of
was-
workshop
yeah.
to get, usually it happened before the meeting with everybody here, so that we get to know each other a little better and review the format, the rules, anything like that. So, I don't believe we need to vote on that either, so just, we're gonna put together a date for that and get it out to everybody.
Just because I was signing in June 4th, June 18th, July 16th, July 23rd, other than the 14th, those are the only meetings we...
Yes.
Fine.
This one's, yeah, there's a few pages right here. And then I will start drafting, I'll start drafting the decision for it, send them their way, get that to you. I'll get that to you.
I figure so. I'm in my office all day tomorrow,
Okay.
but you don't need me to sign it.
Crushing the stuff.
What's that?
Crushing the
Just need to make sure it's okay.
Some different. Okay. I used different pen there, so just because a little smudge.
So I've been out of touch with the complete streets, the town center, vision plan.
Try not to touch the signatures.
So maybe if we have the right agenda, maybe Tim can give an update on what he knows. So we can
Okay.
Yeah, on
good.
the 14th, we only have one item, I think, so.
I think the town center plan, I think it'd be more productive. I mean, the short update is that the engineers who work on the project is creating their final report based on all the feedback and all the different sessions. So I think that, other than that, I feel like we need to directly see that report. That's kind of my thing. I think that's sometime next
Coming.
month,
Yes.
sometime in May.
Are they
So-
coming up with some draft bylaw amendments for the town?
I believe that's some of what they've discussed.
What did you say, Owen?
So they're coming up with some bylaw, some
Some
bylaw
potential
amendments
bylaw
for
adjustments.
that area.
They'll make recommendations in the report, yes. I would expect we're going to have a new zoning district, a village center zoning district that's different from our village commercial.
I think they also identified some other things in our bylaws that were just a little bit,
Outdated?
Quirky.
they didn't think they were optimal.
That's great, I like that.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
So, and they were, highlighting those for us as part of the report. I forget the wording I used at the meeting, but it was not nearly as elegant. Yeah.
And as far as the complete streets, let's say for sake of discussion right now that the town hall and community center passes in June, then is that complete streets flexible as far as the roads that they prioritize for sidewalks and such? Because I know they had done a whole survey on the most, the busiest roads and where sidewalks be most useful and such.
Right.
As part of a master plan, I guess, and if the Elm Street project passes, can we go back and revisit, some of those?
I would say I think that's certainly a possibility. The Complete Streets Prioritization Plan was recently approved by MassDOT, so now the next step is for the town and the stakeholders who were involved to get together to suggest proposals to go forward for implementation. So the money would be used for the design, and then later you could come back for some construction funds. So that could. There were a couple projects right in the village center were high priorities.
Near schools.
Right. Plain Street was a high priority, and
which I don't understand that one, by the way.
because you had the school
Yeah.
and you had the ball fields
Yeah.
there, so that usually increases
It does.
the prioritization of it. So, and unfortunately, we had applied. School board or the Norton Public Schools had applied for a Safe Routes to Schools grant, but that didn't come through, unfortunately. So, I think we'll have to see where we are in terms of all of these different things, because we have a great amount of need for sidewalks and bike facilities throughout. So, certainly if Town Hall and the community center get approved on Elm, having that would be. We're also starting to look at some other grant funding available that the state has through community development block grants. We're not an entitlement community, but there's one grant we could be eligible for. So we started investigating that. We missed this year's deadline for it, but it's possible that Village Center or possibly even Elm Street could be. So you could use some of that money for streetscape improvements.
Great. And the only other thing that I wanted to mention is, I know that this past year you were really busy responding to applicants and, special permits and such. But at some point, if the workload, drops off a little bit, like if we have meetings, we have very little on the agenda, it would be really good to start talking more about a master plan and how to refresh that and update it. Because a big part of our duty is to have a master plan, and I'm sure it's quite old.
It was from 1998, so we're starting to move forward. June, we have a contract with the Southeastern Regional Planning and Economic Development District, SERPID. So we have worked with them to develop an initial scope, and we will be June doing the initial launch of it. Fortunately, we were able to get, through SERPID, $20,000 this year for what they call a direct local technical assistance grant, possibly another 20 next year. And we were also able to get $30,000 from the state for the Community Compact program. So right now we have $50,000, probably $70,000, and the estimated costs for the plan is $100,000. So we are asking through town meeting for that additional $30,000. But 70 out of 100 is pretty good. So we have some good folks at SERPID who will work with us. We also, obviously, the planning board will have a big stake in all of this. We're looking at working with you all to create an advisory group, which what we're thinking is having representatives from the different different committees that have land use aspects. So Conservation Commission, Zoning Board, the Industrial Development Committee, maybe having one rep from each of those commissions to serve on it, to help advise it. But it's going to be driven by the public. I mean, we're all of the same mindset that the public needs to be heavily involved in telling us, here's the direction of the town. So our job will be to translate that. But obviously, we'll need the work of the planning board and other boards and committees to help us put that all together.
Sounds great.
On a related note, where it's still very fresh in our memory, you'll remember some of well, specifically, Mr. Cogliano talked about a committee to look at our solar bylaws. Again, our solar bylaws are pretty anemic. And given the fact that we're approaching summer, fall town meeting will be here ASAP. I think that's something that we really got to take seriously. Having participation rather than have a group of citizens only draft something, because it may or may not be consistent with some of the things we want to accomplish. But again, I think we'll talk about master plan. A zoning bylaw review of our solar bylaw needs to take place before we break faith with the neighbors.
Would a noise bylaw be part of that, maybe?
It's almost like it's a subset. There ought to be a noise bylaw that can be referenced to in the solar bylaw. This 10% above background, or 10 decibels above background is, I think, pretty weak.
What's the method that's used to do an outreach of all the different bylaws across the state of Massachusetts to see if anyone's addressed that concern for different profiles of sound? Is there a methodology to go after and
I wouldn't call it a methodology, but we have
you manually
access.
do it?
Listserv.
Well, I'm a member of the, there's a few things we can do. There's the planners of Massachusetts have a very active
Database?
email exchange. So if I put out something, you get information back.
So
So
you
I
can inquire and hopefully people respond, but otherwise.
yeah. And then there's,
I hope you don't get too many responses, I
Yeah.
think is what you're saying.
well, when I put out a request about cranberry bogs and solar, you could hear the crickets chirping, but I do investigate, but there could be methods to doing that. And I have found a lot just by doing searches on browsers and finding it. But we also have the Massachusetts Planning Directors Forum. In fact, I need to register for it. Their annual meeting is coming up at the end of May. But that's an opportunity to network with folks. But yeah, there's certainly plenty of opportunities to look at solar bylaws, noise bylaws.
I know town council's brought some to us at some points as well. With
Right.
other things.
Yeah.
When we're doing the
And we have
when
one
we're
of the-
doing the marijuana, I know they did a review of other
Right.
ones.
And Copeland Page is, they're probably the largest land use law firm in the state, so certainly I'm not afraid to ask Amy questions. And that one would be much more interesting than a lot of the questions I do end up having to ask her. So I would really like to dig into that because, hearing what we went through, there are improvements that can be made to the bylaw that we can, get a better product out of it, create win-wins with it. So I would just suggest with an advisory group looking at the bylaws that we should be thinking about the types of people we would want on it, obviously residents, but I would just suggest people from the solar industry. Noise is that, if it's noise, water, whatever other issues, we should be pulling experts from those fields to get them to weigh in on it as well. That way it's a broader look at this issue.
All right. Any other business?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Right.